Welcome to I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentry. This is a Super Bowl preview episode, folks. We're here. It is time to break down the big game. Our Philadelphia Eagles, take on the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of the 2023 edition, Tyson. Can the Eagles stop another three-peat? Patrick Mahomes going to do something Tom Brady never did. Can Jalen Hurts and this year get over the hurdle? We got a ton of stuff that we can discuss. Ton of stuff that are played into this, but what we're going to do here, we're going to talk about the X's and O's. We've already done a little early preview. Go check that out if you haven't listened already. That's in your feed. But this is going to be a little bit more in depth. We're going to talk about tendencies. We're going to talk about what the Chiefs want to do on offense, what the Eagles want to do on offense, how the defenses match up, X factors. So that's going to be here. And at the end, we're going to give our predictions. Tyson, we're recording on Tuesday. We're counting down the days. And though you just told me before we got on here, you're starting to get a little nervous. How you feeling, brother?
I'm getting nervous right now as we're doing this. Like, I'm having flashbacks. I was in a different apartment at the time, but I'm like, I know where I was sitting when we did that one in 2022. And you and I were over the moon confident at that point that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to the Super Bowl. We were kids. We were naive. We didn't know. And now we've learned. But yeah, we were riding high, and now it's really setting in. When you said Tuesday, I started doing them hours, like math in my head, trying to figure out exactly how many more like hours I need to sleep and pretend to be doing stuff on my laptop at work, stuff like that.
It's counting down the days, folks. So going forward, what we got later in the week is going to be our betting, Papapalooza or extravaganza or whatever the hell we call it for our props and everything like that. This is going to be the breakdown, and we'll have one reaction to the Super Bowl, and then that's the bow in the football season. So thanks for riding with us. We're not done yet. Let's plow ahead. Chiefs offense, Eagles defense, because Tyson, I think this is really the matchup that people are curious about. The Eagles defense has been number one in the league. This is not the same defense that it was a year ago. This is not the same defense, forget this high sack totals, that it was in 2023's version of the big game. This is a defense led by Vic Fangio that is coming in extremely confident, extremely fast, extremely well coached against a Chiefs offense where every single week it's like, God, it just feels like they're missing something. Yet they continue to win. Yet they always pull something out. And they're coming off a game against the Bills where they're 99th percentile and the drop back. It was like, where is this coming from? So that's what we're faced with here. Let's start breaking it down.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good intro here, and I know you're normally the numbers guy, so I'll save some of the EPA stuff and things like that to you. But one of the things that I kind of want to talk about right off the bat here with the Kansas City Chiefs offense is pass rate over expected in the NFL. They're second, meaning the times when the analytics would tell you, or maybe the correct call according to a computer or whoever it is running the model, you're supposed to run the ball. They say, we don't care. We got 15. We're dropping back and we're throwing that thing. And if you think to some of these Philadelphia Eagles games that have been maybe tighter than you would have expected at the end, or games that they just straight up lost, they've struggled in like 3rd and 7. Right. And then all like these kind of things, they need to keep the Chiefs. It almost sounds counterintuitive, but Kansas City's probably going to end up going for it on 4th downs quite a bit. And on 3rd down, this is crazy, but they almost might have a better chance if Kansas City's 4th and 4, and Andy doesn't want to take the shot in some of these, and if he's forced to. And I know it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but Vic Fangio is like they blitz the least amount in the league. Patrick Mahomes is a heck of a creator. He's going to get the chance to drop back and hit the timing routes and quick hitters that the Philadelphia Eagles defense wants to give you, but that's also what the Kansas City Chiefs offense wants to take. And so if you lengthen the field a little bit, the Philadelphia Eagles struggle covering the middle of the field. That's the biggest weakness of this pass defense. I think it's like 15th or 14th in the NFL on passes, 10 to 19 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's where Patrick Mahomes can absolutely murder you on Sunday.
That is an interesting thing to note, Tyson. That's what I want to focus on kind of from my intro into this angle. This is how I'm viewing it. Chiefs get the ball out extremely quick. Patrick Mahomes, I think they know, both Mahomes and Reed know that this offensive line is not built for him to drop back and sit in the pocket for 3 to 4 to 5 seconds. This is, we can do enough. We're kind of stone the defensive pass rush at the beginning. You get the ball out to a playmaker, whether it's Worthy, whether it's somebody, Hollywood, whether it is Travis Kelce, somebody who can make a potential play with it, whether it goes for 5, whether it can break out for a little bit longer. That's how we're operating. This is not an explosive offense by any means. This is not the Tyreek Hill version. We're not, like, you think this is Mahomes and Andy Reid. Get that out of your head. You got to look at this team and this version because we've seen different iterations of the Chiefs. This is what we're dealing with. Quick hitting offense, move the chains every so often, 5 yards of pass. Mahomes, I think what Tyson is complete. It's 6 yards a completion. And we're talking about Patrick Mahomes. Like you said, the Eagles want to give that to you. They do not give up the big explosive play. So they sit underneath. They're an extremely good tackling team. I think that's what it comes down to. When the Chiefs are being able to operate how they want, getting the underneath throws, is it going to be enough that the Eagles can get off the field on third down? Are they going to be able to make those plays and tackle so that all of a sudden the Chiefs are facing the 3rd and 6, the 3rd and 8, instead of the 3rd and 2, the 3rd and 1 where their playbook gets opened up?
And this is like one thing I just kind of want to preface a lot of the stuff we'll say today. Like they've played 20, 21 games or whatever. This is a 1-game sample size. So if they come out and it's Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy deep shots, you don't get to come on here and say, well, Brad told me this Andy Reid's going to empty the bag here. This is the last game of the season, man. And it's an awesome matchup between Vic Fangio and Andy Reid, Vic Fangio and Pat Mahomes, this cornerback group versus this wide receiver group. Like if we can talk about that a little bit, but Darius Slay's been very good this season. Quinyon Mitchell has been nearly all pro level essentially this season. Cooper DeJean has been awesome in the slot. The Philadelphia Eagles defense fundamentally changed after that week 4 bye, and you can credit it to the team focusing more on tackling that week reportedly and all this stuff. But the one thing we know for sure is Cooper DeJean joined the lineup, and that's really when this Eagles defense went wheels up. And so I'm not worried about those guys against your Juju Smith-Schusters, Xavier Worthies, Hollywood Brown, just whoever else, really. So this Philadelphia Eagles defensive line needs to be able to get home with 4.
That's the other thing too, and I'm thinking that's the second thing I'm circling. So first is, can they tackle? Are they going to be able to make enough plays to mitigate? Yes, the Chiefs are going to get theirs. I don't think the Eagles are going to change their defense too much. Like, I don't think Fangio is going to all of a sudden blitz here. So they're going to operate out of their base defense or how they normally want to. So the second thing I'm looking at here, this Chiefs offense. Now, we went over the referees thing here. And again, this is in the early breakdown. Some people maybe were happy that there was no football and you kind of got a break on stuff. So if you're climbing back in, go check that out because we break down this referee thing here. This crew has a propensity to call offensive holding penalties. That is a major concern, I think, if you're the Chiefs, because if you get a holding call or a sack, Tyson, your chance of scoring points on that drive completely plummet. I mean, it is night and day the difference between if you get a holding call and a sack on a drive. So with that in mind, this Eagles front 4, really want to call it, they're going to have to dominate. Jalen Carter on the interior, Milton Williams on the interior, and then can Nolan Smith keep up his pace? He's been incredible off the edge. Is there going to be a Bryce Huff sighting? Josh Sweat, is he going to come to life here? I think that's huge because if the Eagles can get home with 4, that opens up everything that they can do on the back end to slow down Patrick Mahomes. They don't have to blitz, or Mahomes is really good at dissecting. And we saw that. How did the Bucs destroy the Chiefs a few years ago? Well, they just dominated up front. Didn't need the rush, the extra guy, and their trenches absolutely destroyed the Chiefs. I think that's in play here.
Yeah, and I think, you said it. I mean, it starts with Jalen Carter up front, and like moving Joe Thuney is awesome for Kansas City, but also for Philadelphia, it might result in more double teams for Jalen Carter, which means the other defensive tackles, whether it's Jordan Davis or Milton Williams, need to be able to win their one-on-one matchups. I think that Jalen Carter can win a couple 2-on-1s throughout the game, but we're Eagles fans here, but you can pump the brakes a little bit on the Aaron Donald thing. Like, I think the kid is special, but we're talking about one of the best players of all time. I'm not expecting him to impact the Super Bowl the way Aaron Donald did. So I think it's on Milton Williams here to win some pass rush reps in a one-on-one situation and heat up Patrick Mahomes. And then it's on, let's see that 4.4 speed from Nolan Smith, because he needs to contain the edge on that side. That's where Patrick Mahomes is going to want to roll out more often than not. And so I think it's on him. It's on Josh Sweat as well. It might be his last game as a Philadelphia Eagle, but those 4 or 5 defensive linemen really need to do their work well, because the second unit for the Philadelphia Eagles isn't quite 2022. And we're talking about, wow, this team has 2 starting defensive lines. J.L.X. Hunt's been a good pass rusher. Brandon Graham will be back for this game, but he's coming off of like a torn tricep. It sounds pretty crazy to expect more than like 10 or 15 snaps. That's what I'm expecting. I don't know. Do you have a different opinion? Do you think BG's going to play more?
No, I think he's going to be third down pass rush situations. I don't think he's going to do anything first and second down.
Yeah, so all those guys, like they play a ton of snaps for a reason. I'm sure everybody out there has heard Jalen Carter doesn't come off the field. Josh Sweat has played more snaps this year than I think any other in his career, and Nolan Smith has lived on the field as well. So those guys got to win.
Last thing I want to point out here on this Chiefs offense versus the Eagles defense here, I think everybody has in their mind, oh, well, Mahomes, last time against the Eagles, it was a shootout. Like, that was Jonathan Gannon. This is Vic Fangio. It was. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Philly was glad that Jonathan Gannon departed the city. It was so bad how that defense operated in the Super Bowl. Tyson, what were we talking about? Like 98th percentile success rate, 99, and the Super Bowl. And come on, against a defense that was getting after the pass. I mean, it was just so bad, and everybody was lost, and it was not a good look. So get that out of your mind here. Now, here's the other thing I hear pointed out. Well, Patrick Mahomes is 8-0 versus Vic Fangio, right? Chiefs own the Broncos. They have better talent. They've had better players. They're further along in their development. Here's what I want to point out here. The best game that Patrick Mahomes has had against Vic Fangio was his second game facing that defense in 2019. 27 of 34, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He was sacked 3 times. The rest of the way has been pretty average, Tyson. He's only thrown for multi-touchdowns twice. That was in 22 and 2023. So his total stats in 8 games, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, was sacked 11 times. His completion percentage was 64.3%. They'll take that, but only 233 yards, Tyson. Like, this isn't – it's like Patrick Mahomes is dominating Vic Fangio or anything like that. So I think people see the 8-0, they're like, oh, well, yeah, but I mean, barely over a touchdown a game is what we're talking about here.
Well, it is scary because that's how Kansas City wants to play. So maybe Pat Mahomes is okay with that for this team. And then also, of all the Pat Mahomes samples, like how many random 8-game samples against anybody can you pull out and it'll just say Pat Mahomes is 8-0? Like, this dude wins a ton of football games. They're the best team in the NFL for a reason, for the better part here of a decade. Last thing for me really is the Eagles aren't great against tight end. They weren't great when it was Nakobe Dean, and then now obviously he's out. It's going to be Oren Burks, and I expect Andy Reid. Maybe we're going to get 3 tight ends on the field at one time. And you want to run Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Travis Kelce, and then you're going to let Oren Burks cover Noah Gray. I got somebody else for you. Let's see where they fit in. And then if you notice, we didn't mention the run game for the Kansas City Chiefs or the Philadelphia Eagles rush defense. I don't expect it to factor into the game a whole heck of a lot. I mentioned the pass rate over expected at the top, and then the Philadelphia Eagles also have the second best rush defense in the NFL. If Kansas City's in a super positive game script, maybe we'll see them break it out, but they have the 32nd most explosive run game in the NFL. So I'm not expecting them to rely on this for chunk plays or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are going to try to run the ball. I mean, it's crazy for us Eagles fans who've seen Andy Reid.
It might be as this is the Eagles bias for sure, but I want the old school Andy, only jet sweeps, only screen. Like, I want, do to them what you did to us, dude.
Well, I think I was going to say, I think that might happen here. Like, I do think they're going to try to run Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco just into the line. I mean, we've seen that.
He was awesome in 2022.
Right. And I think they're going to kind of draw on that. And, it kind of worked a little bit against the Niners both times too, like the run game. So I think they're kind of looking at that as like, well, we can keep them honest. I don't think that's the play here. Like you said, I think they kind of know, like, this is not – the Bills defense really did good enough for the Bills to win that game. Let's put it that way. Like, yeah, McDermott got shredded up. They did enough that the Bills could win. This Eagles defense is better than that Bills team. So I'm with you. I don't think the run game is going to factor in too much, but, you never know. Like you said, 1-game sample size. Let's move in the Chiefs' offensive X factor here. Who do you have that you think is really going to either be the surprise guy, or that you think it plays a huge role in the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl?
Well, let's see. I'll take it both ways. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I think Noah Gray, if you haven't been paying attention, might be the, there's always, like, we call him the unsung hero, but if you've been watching the team all year, you understand that this guy is pretty good. And then he has 100 yards in the Super Bowl. I think Noah Gray could be that guy. And then maybe the one people see coming. I don't mean to step on your toe. I don't know if this is your guy, but I think there might dial up some shots. I think there might be a couple. Let's just send Xavier Worthy deep. Let's see this 4-2 speed, whether it's him or Hollywood Brown. Maybe Andy Reid is the one you see coming.
So I was going to say Hollywood potentially. I'm kind of going through it. It's like, well, he was hurt and he can stretch the field. He's just not the guy that people thought coming out, Tyson. So I think if you're going to line him up from either Slay or Quinion Mitchell, I think that's advantage Eagles. Like Xavier Worthy's the guy that I think he's going to be the feature part of this offense. But if I'm looking at the X factor here, to me, it's DeAndre Hopkins. The guy played 11 snaps against the Bills. This is a guy that they got. That's supposed to be their number one receiver in a vacuum, right? Like, oh, he's the former All-Pro. He's the former Pro Bowler. This guy can add something in a different dimension here. If he's operating at a high level, which I don't know if it's in him, but if he brings you something, right? 3 catches, 40 yards, 3 catches, 60 yards, that's enough for the Chiefs. I think opens up things for Xavier Worthy, opens up things for Travis Kelce. But if he's not a factor, I do think it gets pretty limited on that offensive side.
He's DeAndre Hopkins, dude. I'm fully expecting him to show up.
Let's go to the other side. Eagles defensive X factor here. So I think you mentioned one, Milton Williams. I don't know if that's your guy or not. I think we both agree it's going to be on his plate, especially if Jalen Carter is getting doubled. Do you have another one, or do you have another one that stood out that was outside of Milton Williams?
I think it'd be Oren Burks outside of Milton. Milton Williams was awesome in the NFC Championship game and did a lot in that game that kind of went unnoticed in the stat sheet, but just check the pressures. I mean, the guy dominates. But Oren Burks is going to be tasked, with maybe it'll be C-ball, hit ball. Like that would be ideal, but he's going to have to drop into coverage. This is a guy who had to come in for Dre Greenlaw during last year's Super Bowl, and he just got picked on during that Chiefs comeback. This is somebody I'm sure Travis Kelce's looking across and going, I know you. Like this, I'm excited to see. He was good in the NFC title game. He was good in relief coming in for Nakobe Dean essentially this whole time, but it's a little different against an all-time great connection.
So that's interesting, Tyson, because I think, they're kind of looking at things, and Fangio and Sirianni are like, okay, so we've struggled against the tight end.
It's going to be safety, but I just think that, it's Andy Reid's going to find a way. It's like how everybody has a guy that can stick Steph Curry, and he might stay with him until Steve Kerr draws up 5 or 6 screens.
Or just like the LeBron stopper, right? Remember that whole thing? Like the LeBron stopper. That's what I think my X factor is going to be Reed Blankenship. So I went between Reed and 𝐶𝐽_GJ. I saw, Brent Selleck. Tyson and I are Eagles fans. We're kind of consuming some content. So I saw Brent Selleck was back in practice, kind of give them a look about Kelce, right? The size, he doesn't have, maybe he has the speed now of Kelce if you've been watching him, but the size and the physicality that Kelce brings in the middle of the field. And I saw a lot of Gardner Johnson in that role, trying to sit down and cover Kelce. I don't know if that's actually going to happen here. I think it could be Blankenship. Gardner Johnson's done a great job of playing in the box, but also roaming on the back and taking the ball away. I think personally, I'd like to see 𝐶𝐽_GJ guard Travis Kelce. I think he's a better coverage defender than Blankenship, but Blankenship's a little bit more physical, I think. So if they want to go speed on speed and physicality on physicality, I'm going to guess it's going to be Blankenship getting a lot of that work, and he's got to win that battle. I think he's huge in this game. Let's move over to the other side of the ball. Let's flip the field, as they say. Eagles offense, Chiefs defense. I don't think people are talking about this as much, Tyson. I think this is just as fascinating. Well, I think everybody thinks that Jalen Hurts sucks and his Chiefs defense is legendary and Spags and this and the Eagles. I mean, you had freaking Colin Cowherd. I know it was tongue in cheek, but he's like, I don't know if the Eagles offense are getting in the red zone. Like, dude, what
I feel like this is all I've heard is Jalen versus Spagnuolo.
Really? Okay, so maybe I'm just too much on the X streets, man, the Twitter streets. And I'm just seeing can Mahomes get shut down? And so why don't we dive? I'll throw it to you then here. What are you seeing? I'm curious now because I have not seen that as much.
Well, maybe that's just what I've been trying to consume online. I'm fully capable of that. But yes, Spags is the best for a reason. I mean, the guy's got 4 Super Bowl rings with different organizations. He's a master. He's probably the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. And he does stuff that breaks people's brains. We saw Josh Allen dominate the blitz all season long. He dominated the Chiefs blitz the first time they played. And then the last play of the game, Steve Spagnuolo had him confused. Should Kincaid have caught the pass? Yeah. Maybe we're not having this conversation, but the point is there's stuff in his back pocket that he hadn't even put on tape yet and was ready to empty it out. The guy's been coaching for 100 years. It's crazy how exotic some of these things are. And the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line is awesome. They've allowed some pressures here. There's a lot of talk. Jalen Hurts holds on to the ball too long. We all know that. But some of these sacks, man, are off of blitzes and it's miscommunications along the offensive front. I expect Chris Jones to line up a lot against Mekhi Becton, especially in passing situations, because that's where he's going to win more likely than not along this front here. And I think that Steve Spagnuolo is not afraid of the 301 yards that Jalen Hurts threw for in 2022. He's looking at some of this 2024. He's looking to what the Rams did and going, oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. And I think, that's interesting, Tyson, because I'm thinking the same thing. Where's the weak link that we've watched here? And we love Landon Dickerson. We think he's a great guard. And we love Cam Jurgens. It's been a great replacement for Kelce. I mean, you go from a Hall of Fame center to nobody's talking about the center and the drop-off. I mean, he's been that good. Where are the pressures coming from? It's up the middle. I still think there's some communication things there. Now, I'm with you. I think it's a little bit more on the Becton side of things. And that's kind of been hinted at, he's still figuring things out.
It's so hard to get at least a pre-snap, and you never know what's going to happen once the ball snapped. But a pre-snap one-on-one with the center is just about impossible. So the offensive line is almost already you look at that when they're lined up that way, and you're going, oh, okay, so he's getting doubled. And I feel like if you can line up on Becton and Karlaftis or whoever's with Lane Johnson, it opens up more opportunity for Chris Jones to go one-on-one.
And I think that's probably what they'll try to do. And if you have to go, hey, Landon Dickerson, you're on an island today, you got to win that. I think they'll take that, right? I think he's good enough to do that. Now, we've seen the overload blitzes and the exotics that Spagnuolo's done. And I really think it's not the lack of talent. When you watch some O-lines give up sacks, it's because they just get destroyed and they're just not good. I don't know. It's a lack of communication, I think, up front, or the twists, and they're not doing the handoffs well. Because we pointed out, Hurts, yeah, he holds on to the ball, and that's where they get into trouble at times. But I think it's a 50-50 split between dude, let it rip, and you got to make a decision. And somebody should have been passed along there, and we just missed that. And now all of a sudden, Jalen's scrambling. So I do think there's a combo here, and I think that's where the Eagles can get into trouble, because Spagnuolo does things that don't look like blitzes from a certain side, and all of a sudden you got two guys overloading Lane Johnson. You got two guys overloading the left side. Just different things like this where they bring heat and heat up Jalen. I don't think Jalen Hurts is very good against the blitz, Tyson. Me watching the eye test. Now, numbers can say otherwise. When I'm watching, I'm like, we need a quick hitter. I don't know if Kellen Moore is going to have more drawn up, Tyson. If it's a built-in, hey, just in case the blitz comes, here's your out. And can Dallas Goedert win the one-on-one against the linebacker? Can Jahan Dotson be a factor? Is it Grant Calcaterra being that little safety valve? I think Saquon Barkley is going to be in a little bit more. I don't know how involved he's going to be in the pass catching game. Maybe that's what. maybe that's when they can get him involved. Tyson, a little bit of a screen over the top. I don't know, get a game breaker. But I'm with you. I think that's a huge thing here. Is the upfront battle. And
you mentioned, where's Jalen's read? And I think that's one of the things that Spags and this chief defense maybe don't get enough credit for. When everybody knows how awesome he is, but your check down might not be your check down, or your hot route might not be your hot route, because you're thinking, okay, well, with this look pre-snap, I'm going to the back out of the backfield. And all of a sudden he's covered and the pressure's coming from the other way. Where the Chiefs defense really struggles this season, and it's been a little bit different since they've gotten healthy, but it's outside the numbers. And that's a spot that A.J. Brown can win, and Devontae Smith can win. And so I think that if you've consumed any Eagles games so far this season, if you've been watching, if it's an obvious blitz before the snap, a lot of the time it's, hey, AJ, run a slant, and I'm just throwing you the football. Kansas City's really good at taking some of that inside stuff away. So I'm anticipating Kellen Moore to look at that and say, okay, we're running just a 5-yard out.
The other thing and I got a few different things I want to unpack here with you, Tyson, that I think our readers will be interested in, or our listeners will be interested in. I threw this to you, and it's so ridiculous on the surface to say this, because this is a National Football League. Everybody has professionals. Everybody has 54 guy or 53 men who are active that are all professionals. Now, some are better than the other. This is probably the best roster in the NFL for the Eagles, so they have a better roster than the Panthers, but they're all pros. I said to you, we thought that was the best game that Kellen Moore's had as an offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles against the Commanders. if he was sitting on stuff the entire season to break it out here, and that just sounds ridiculous. But remember, the whole thing is, well, Andy's sitting on his good plays. Andy's sitting on his good plays. And that's been the storyline surrounding the Chiefs. All of a sudden, something's broken out. It's like, nobody's seen that on tape. I'm wondering here is if Kellen Moore's been sitting on some stuff, like we know we're good enough to get into the playoffs with certain looks and our standard sets. All of a sudden now, when the hell did Devontae Smith start doing jet sweeps? Like, it was like unbelievable. I think they're going to do a lot of deception with the eyes, a lot of motion, getting these linebackers out of position, seeing if the secondary will show their hand, Tyson, because I don't care. Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator. He's not David Blaine, right? Like, if you're in zone set and you have to stay in the zone, you have to stay in the zone. If you're in man coverage, I don't care if you're blitzing off the corner, you have to make it look like you're in man coverage. You have to follow your guy. Like, that's the way it goes. Or else, you stay there. Well, you're blitzing. So I think we're going to see a lot of different looks like that. Change the eye level of the Chiefs secondary and the linebacking core, and that's going to be a way that they can get an edge.
Yeah, and I feel like we'll get back into the passing stuff, but we kind of buried the lead here a little bit as well. The Philadelphia Eagles have Saquon Barkley, and that's kind of that's the show this week. That's what everybody wants to talk about. Eagles number 1 in EPA per play when running the football. Chiefs defense this season was 15th, and the explosive run rate for Philadelphia is 6th. And we all know you've all seen the highlights of the 60-yard touchdown runs and all the runs over 50 yards. The Chiefs defense is really good at limiting explosive runs, and that's kind of a stat that people are going to lean on. I'm not so sure how much that matters against this guy, but I think if you're Kansas City, you live with a 20 carries, for 125 yards and a touchdown if 65 of those came on one play. That means that you had a heck of a game against this guy. And I think that's something that can, because the home run is probably going to come. Like, the only time he hasn't hit one in the playoff was against the Green Bay Packers, and he slid. They would have been another 60-yard touchdown run.
It made me some money too. Come on, Saquon.
Yeah, he didn't care about that. He just wanted to get out of there healthy, baby. But I think that if you're the Chiefs, like, if you can limit it, it sounds stupid, but I don't think it's really possible for them to just take away all explosive runs. And it doesn't have to be a 60-yard touchdown, but if it's a 25-yard, first and 10 or second and 10 run by Saquon Barkley, you're living if you can only allow 1 or 2 of those. It's a big problem if you're the Los Angeles Rams or the Washington Commanders when he gets 3 or 4.
No, I completely agree with you. I don't think that's stupid. I mean, if you're going to stop him and kind of the whole narrative surrounding Saquon when he was with the Giants, he's like, well, he only gets 2 yards of carry, then he gets those big explosives. And it's like, and we said this, well, we'd rather have the guy who has the home run potential. I mean, Kyren Williams, we like him on the Rams. That offense would go to a different stratosphere if he could outrun DBs. You know what I mean? Because they're doing a good enough job of scheming things up. He just can't break it. Saquon Barkley does. Saquon Barkley gets those points on the board. So you take that from your running back every second of the week. But if you're the Chiefs and you're like, okay, well, the guy gashed us once, but we're plugging everything else up and we're forcing the Eagles to throw, and that's not really their strength. You take that every second, right? Then Spagnuolo can get to his blitz set. Spagnuolo can get to his bag, as the kids say. And that's kind of where we are if the Eagles are going to be defeated, I think, if you take out their run game. I have a little bit more on this coming up, Tyson, but I want to – last thing for me here on this offense before I kind of shift to my angle on the running game. So when the Eagles played the Chiefs the first time, L'Jarius Sneed was the number 1 guy, and you had some younger guys in the secondary, and they kind of matured and grew, and now Trent McDuffie's the guy. The size difference between McDuffie and Sneed is notable, especially when you're facing the freak that is A.J. Brown. So Sneed can kind of go one-on-one and physically match up with A.J. Brown. That ain't happening with McDuffie. Like, McDuffie's going to have to do some things, and where if he can run with him and he can stay with him on that front, sure. Tyson, I'm looking at this. I don't know. I think they kind of hey, let's live the see if Saquon. If A.J. Brown can catch like 8 balls for 100 yards or something, we take away Smitty and maybe our linebacker gets lucky on Goddard. I wonder if that's the way Spagnuolo does it, because unlike before, I don't think there's a guy who can just erase A.J. Brown like Sneed, who can kind of take him away with his physicality.
Well, I don't think there's anybody in the league that can take away A.J. Brown. There's it's a harder job than I think some give credit for. But I expect personally when they're in the Chiefs defense, this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to really go too deep into like what we're expecting because they run man, they run zone, they run cover 3, they run cover 4, they run cover 2, the cover 0, like everything is over 10%. You don't know what you're getting from this unit, but when they are in man, I think it'll be McDuffie, and I think it'll be bracket coverage, and it'll just say, hey, we're not letting him go on these 40-yard go balls. And then when it's zone, I expect it to be heavily shaded over to AJ's side as well, just because like Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the football to the middle of the field, and I think that the Kansas City can prey on that a little bit. And on the flip side, I expect Kellen Moore to involve Dallas Goedert early over the middle of the field to calm Jalen's nerves, get him involved in the game, and then also maybe put something on the plate to think about for how the Chiefs defense wants to play the rest of the game, because I think they're going to start the game going, hey, you got to show us you're going to throw there first before we commit to taking it away.
Last thing for me here, and I keep saying this is actually my last one. It just popped in my head. The Chiefs love playing man defense. Jalen Hurts really good against man. Do they blink first, or lack of a better term, with Spag coming in this and saying, I know, guys, we're great at man defense. We've been great. We're going to play zone this game. And it's like, what? Because anytime that you're coming in, you're like, wait, you're not confident we can win man? And you put some doubt into the head. Oh, why are we changing up? We've been great. We're in the Super Bowl. We're going for a 3-peat. Why are we changing up? I do think that's a big thing. And people are like, well, that's a human element. You can't put that on paper. Right. It's played with human beings, not freaking computers, right? This isn't a simulation. You got to go out there and actually make the play. So I'm curious, Tyson. That is something that I am watching. How much man are the Chiefs using? How much zone are they using? Because Jalen Hurts has struggled against too high zone looks. Do we see more of that? Do they get out of their comfort zone? That's something that is going to be massive here.
I don't believe you. I think that they just win. I think that they'll be fine. I mentioned the Chiefs, second in the NFL in pass rate over expected. The Philadelphia Eagles are 32nd in the NFL pass rate over expected. You're going to get runs. You can take it away the first 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, but unless this team is down by 14 or really 3 scores, probably is when they're just like, okay, we have to throw the ball. So I think you're going to get a heavy dose of Saquon Barkley. And then the sack rate for the Philadelphia Eagles, 31st. We talked about that. A lot of it's Jalen Hurts. Some of it's the offensive line. Explosive pass rate. The Philadelphia Eagles are 6th in the NFL at creating big plays through the air. The Kansas City Chiefs are 21st at defending those. So I think Philadelphia has a chance to hit some of the, like we saw A.J. Brown get like a 40-yard touchdown in this game a couple years ago. Devontae Smith had some huge catches. And yeah, that's really all it is. And I'm curious if Philadelphia is going to roll out any play action. I'm not anticipating a ton. It's not something they did throughout the regular season, but that seems like it could have huge benefits for the Philadelphia Eagles or huge negatives if it is incoming blitz. It could be another fumble.
Good point. Let's get into the X factor here for the Eagles. On the offensive side, Tyson, I mean, people are going to say, well, this is not an X factor. I think this opens everything up. I'm going with Saquon Barkley. I mean, X factor doesn't mean the underrated, unheralded player that comes up big. It's like, what is important here? Like, what can open up things on both sides for either team? So, to me, it's Saquon Barkley. We talked about this last Super Bowl between these two teams. Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher. Miles Sanders, he's a Penn State guy. Love Miles Sanders. Saquon Barkley, him and their boys are there together. Saquon Barkley's better running back than Miles Sanders. This is a different beast. This is way harder to stop. They have eviscerated people because of this running game. If Saquon Barkley can be on that same level, if Saquon Barkley can be the same guy as he was against the Rams twice, against the Commanders multiple times, against the other teams that he has just ripped apart, the Eagles are going to win this football game. If he gets shut down, if he reverts back and he looks like the Giants version where, it's 3 yards a pop, maybe get one every once in a while, but you're not necessarily finding that second level, the Eagles are going to struggle. So I think Saquon Barkley is the X factor on the offensive side of the ball for Philadelphia.
Yeah, and the Eagles' offense is kind of cheating because it's a 5-man show. It's Jalen, Saquon, AJ Smitty, and Dallas Goedert. It's not like the Chiefs where there is no Noah Gray or even really a Xavier Worthy to throw out here. I'm going with Dallas Goedert. I think he's going to be huge in this game. We saw him incorporated in the run game in the NFC title game. Whether they break that out or not is something to think about as well. Like I talked about his ability as a pass catcher, exceptional after the catch, all of this stuff. But he needs to be really good in the run game as well. And I think that's something that's huge. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have drawn some praise for their run blocking abilities, but Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra are kind of the two guys on the ground. If you get an inside blitz or a slant or something like that along the defensive line of scrimmage at the point of attack here, Dallas Goedert has to win that.
Chiefs defensive X factor. Tyson, for me, it's George Karlaftis.
Yeah.
So I'm running through this thing, and I talked to McDuffie. I think he's going to be good, and he is. I mean, he's a really good football player. So X factor to me, I mean, if he's matched up against AJ, takes him out, that's great. But I'm looking at this. So if Chris Jones is going to get doubled, I don't think he's going to get doubled very often. I think they're going to do a lot of chipping and a lot of passing between the front, and we'll see if that works or not. Maybe they do have to go full on double. Can George Karlaftis beat Lane Johnson? Can George Karlaftis beat the number one matchup? Can George Karlaftis get pressure on Jalen Hurts, where all of a sudden Saquon Barkley has to stay in the chip, where he can't go up the middle and help on Chris Jones because Karlaftis is coming around the edge? So I think he's a huge part of this Chiefs defense on Sunday.
Yeah, he seems like the obvious one here. I'll go not under the radar by any means, but 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐿 is a heck of a football player. He's really good and very important to what this Chiefs defense does. And he also had a great game in the Super Bowl a couple years ago between these teams. He had the sack. I think everybody can remember that one. And whether it's run fits or just trying to get after the quarterback as well as pass, he's going to be tasked with a lot on Sunday.
So let's close here, folks. On our early one, if you haven't listened to it, we kind of gave our early leans. This is our prediction time. We are going to give our pick on who's going to win the Super Bowl. Now, later in the week, we are giving out our props. We're getting out our plays. If we're doing the total, if we're doing a team total, first, yada, yada, we got the extravaganza coming. But, Tyson, this is our pick here. I had the Chiefs in the early lean. I am switching. I'm going the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win in this game. And I'm scared of the Mahomes thing, and the three-peat just feels like it's inevitable. But the more and more I dove into this throughout the week as we prepared for the show and the in-depth analysis, the more I looked at things like I've looked at the other times that the Eagles have matched up with teams. I like their offensive line better than the Chiefs' offensive line. I like their defensive line better from top to bottom than the Chiefs' defensive line. I know Chris Jones is special. Jalen Carter's pretty damn good. I like the Eagles' secondary better than the Chiefs. I don't think that was the case last time. We talked about all the people who have been replaced. I like the weapons that the Eagles have in this game more than the Chiefs. And I certainly like the running game better. The only edge is quarterback coach. Now, that wins you a lot of games. That wins you championships in this league. But we're talking about best roster versus best player. Jalen Hurts has been really good when the time matters, when the lights are brightest. He was great against Spagnuolo the last time. Only one mistake. It was that fumble. He went right back down and led him to a touchdown. Eagles should have won that football game. Probably would have if they had a defensive coordinator, a different defensive coordinator. I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles to win this football game and to hoist their second Lombardi trophy.
I love it. I love the energy, but you did say they have the advantage at coach and quarterback, and that's it. Brother, we didn't talk special teams today, but Jake Elliott has been brutal, and if this thing comes down to a kick, Philadelphia is in big trouble. And this is like the last game came down to special teams too. Kadarius Toney with like a 65-yard return to set up the field goal, all this stuff. So there are three phases, and we left one out. I just had to, throw that in there because I think that could play a factor. But earlier in the week, I said that I thought the Eagles were going to win, and I'm still there. I still think the Philadelphia Eagles will win the Super Bowl.
I thought you were switching on me quick.
80 to 85% of it is because, unlike Chiefs fans or maybe what's being reported right now, the Eagles, best organization in the NFC, all of this stuff, we don't get to do this every year. So I am going to pick my favorite team to win the Super Bowl. But I also just think position for position, like you said, they are better. It's a massive advantage to have the best quarterback in the league and the best head coach in the league, and that's in best defensive coordinator. That trio can overcome anything. But I think that if this game is played 100 times, the Philadelphia Eagles are walking out winning 60 of them, 65 of them. I think that they're a better team, all the way through. And, give me Saquon Barkley. Let me end this season with the Saquon Barkley MVP trophy in the Super Bowl.
I love it, Tyson. I love it. Let's get out of here. We've taken up a lot of time. Thank you guys for listening. Like, subscribe, and share. You know the drill by now. Stay subscribed so you don't miss a single thing that we got going on. Smash that like button on the way out. If you have a different view of it, let us know in the comments. Share it with a friend. Share it with an enemy. We'll be back later in the week to make some money on the big game. We'll talk to you guys then. Peace.